All right, we're live here in the Inspo Lens studios. I'm Adrian Broaddus. He's Galindo. We're back. We're talking some off-season storylines here. Special shout out to Chris. This is such an awesome studio over here, and we're invited to do this show here today. We were using this as a great opportunity to catch up on off-season storylines and talk about all the storylines here with the online community, the people out there, the sickos who are looking for some off-season content when it comes to UTEP. It's funny, Zay, like we didn't do the minor talk emergency pod because there wasn't any need to. Like there wasn't really any no means necessary. We didn't have any reason to make it happen. Over the last couple weeks, obviously the entire UTEP roster virtually has hit the transfer portal. Beside Jordan Hernandez, who's the El Pasoan, who's the lone guy on the roster, and he's a scholarship player too. So be fair and consider him in this discussion right here, but it'll be an entirely new look UTEP basketball roster going into the Mountain West, going into 2026 and 27. Haven't heard anything about coaching changes other than Reggie Miller going to Abilene Christian. And, we still are waiting to hear more about coaches over this offseason to see if there's any turnover there. But regardless, what we know right now here for men's basketball is there's turnover when it comes to the roster, massive overhaul going into next year. We'll talk about that. We'll jump into some UTEP football storylines. We'll take any questions, any thoughts, any comments and stuff like that too. But we begin by talking basketball. I mean, that's kind of the big headline. It's what we've all been talking about kind of behind the scenes. And, UTEP fans have been cursed yet again by the transfer portal that has hit them big time this time around.
Yeah, I mean, they sure have. And, it's crazy that, this era that we live in, that this team could lose all their players. They're losing all their players, right? And we don't have to call it an emergency minor talk because it's normalized to have roster turnover like this year after year. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I think now everything is starting to ramp up. The transfer portal barely officially opened a couple of days ago. So, now teams can officially make contact, legally do it, bring guys on visits. So I think we'll learn more about what route this team is taking, when it comes to recruiting in the portal and who, they're really looking at.
I think with this past year, like we had the priority list, right? We can go on and on about this. Like Caleb Blackwell, Kasim Watson, Elijah Jones, in whatever order you wanted. Guys who could technically be eligible to return for a final year, but then put it into their shoes, right? Put it in their perspective, right? If you're sold on a school like UTEP, or if UTEP goes after you and you're a difference-making kind of player like that, and whether you want to say they were successful or not, that's a different conversation. But if let's say those guys are all the difference makers on a team, Elijah Jones, Caleb Blackwell, Kasim Watson, you could even throw in this whole conversation Jamal West Jr., even though he exhausted his eligibility. But those three guys were the players that maybe you look at and say, you want those guys as priority keeps. And then you put it into their perspective. Well, why would you want to go back to another school like UTEP for a final year of your eligibility when you could use this, whatever you did this past year, to maybe get to a better school, test the market as it is in the transfer portal, and find a better option? I don't want to say the grass is always greener on the other side because we've seen many instances of this not working out, where a guy hits the portal. We see it a lot in football. A guy hits the portal, he'll level up or transfer portal up in a sense, go to a better school or a high major or even a Power 4 on paper, and it doesn't work out. But the two examples are glaring right now that you look at in men's basketball. Corey Camper Jr. going to Nevada and having the best year he ever had for his final year of college basketball. And then David Terrell Jr., going to North Texas and becoming a fixture over there for a good team in the American Athletic and going back home, closer to home. So kind of interesting when you put it into perspective that really, like, if there are fans who are upset or if there are fans who are like shocked by all of this, just know, like, maybe this was an intentional thing. Like, maybe this was a one-year deal all around, even when you look at it from the coaching perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you put it perfectly, right? You got to put yourself in these athletes' shoes. I mean, UTEP barely won 10 games this year, right? And they're really not trending in the right direction. And these players, yes, they had success here, but, you hit the portal, you're going to command more money because you have the numbers, right? You're probably going to command a better team, a team that's competing, that that program is, it's established already. You know that this team, year in and year out, is going to compete for conference championships. And right now, UTEP's just not in that position, right? So it comes down to exposure, money, and competition. And right now, UTEP is lagging behind in all of those.
Based on what you've heard, were you surprised that Golding there was no change at that head coaching position? Were you surprised there was nothing there?
Not really, right? I mean, you hear him down the stretch, and I really knew as much as the other fans, right? It's not like I had a crazy inside source, but you heard him talk in these post-game pressers and these radio shows and stuff like that. You could kind of tell, right? It doesn't sound like there's finality in what he's saying. It sounds like he's going to come back for another year. So I wasn't that shocked, and I understand the people that were calling him out all year. It was a disappointing season, but I really wasn't shocked, in my opinion.
I wasn't either. Like I didn't. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. And I was thinking about it, man. Like this year's killing him. Like this year, he's visibly upset. He obviously wants to win. It's not like any of these teams don't want to win. And fans don't want to hear this either. Fans just want to win. Fans want more excitement. Fans want cool recruits. And I don't blame fans for all of that. Like the reality for the fans is the transfer portal has really killed them. Like we were just referencing a couple years ago how all the different roster, or how UTEP nowadays would kill for like a Jamal Bieniemy, or kill for a Sule Boom, kill for a Keontae Kennedy, even for that matter. And the reality is the price tag for a lot of these guys in college basketball is just going up and up and up. Like it's just starting to raise more and more and more. And the reality is, like, even a guy like maybe Kasim Watson, or maybe even a guy like Elijah Jones, those guys hit the portal, like they're going for high level dollars. And I know UTEP's getting more money next year from everything that I've been told. Like UTEP is going to level up when it comes to their NIL for men's basketball. But everybody's going to hit a bit of college basketball inflation this year. Revenue sharing is going to be more prevalent. Donors are going to be willing to just, hey, let's double down on this. The price tag is just going up, and it just means that these guys in the portal, they're just going to cost a lot of money. Zay, like, well, who are you going to get? You threw out that tweet yesterday and got a lot of attention, and it's like, yeah, if UTEP goes after a guy in the MAC, no, it doesn't sound like a great thing right there. But at the same time, if they get a guy who can average 15 a game, do you even look at the conference knowing that UTEP just needs guys with experience?
Yeah, and that's a good thing to point out, right? Because you shouldn't really be picky, right? A fan shouldn't be picky. If this guy's going to, put up points and put up stats for your team, then you should take it. But at the same time, right? I mean, Jamal West Jr., he comes in, he averaged around 15 points a game, right? You can have guys like that, and it doesn't mean you're going to win, right? You need winning guys. You need guys that are going to put on real stats. And I'm not saying Jamal West, he was putting up empty stats. This guy was game in and game out competing with the best of them, right? At 6'6", playing down low. That's a tough thing to do. But what I'm saying is, we've seen this story time in and time out. We've seen UTEP go after the same type of player. We've seen UTEP build the same types of teams with different names on them, and it just hasn't worked out, right? You see, they go after JUCO guys, these JUCO guards who they can do a little bit of everything. They're decent defenders, right? L.A. Hayes, Ahmad Bynum, right? They've gone after these same guys, and it just feels like the same outcome with every season that passes. So I think what I was trying to get at in the Mac tweet is, let's think outside the box here. Like, let's go after some D2 guys. We haven't seen any D2 stars head down UTEP. We haven't seen, guys of that nature. A lot of Power 4 guys that maybe didn't play. I know that this year they had a few, but you don't see a lot of Power 4 guys come down to UTEP. They don't make that jump down and come play for Coach Golding. So I want to see something different. I don't want to see the Zid Powells of the world, and that doesn't discredit them as players, but I just don't think that they've worked here at UTEP.
Well, I think if you had to tell me player archetype, right? I just like if I asked you, we had this talk on Sports Talk today, me and Steven, we were asking, like, would you rather have an elite point guard that you go all in on, an elite scoring point guard, or would you like to have a big? Like, and let's just call him an all-conference caliber big. What would you rather go? And if you really wanted to do the player type, you might think, okay, do you want to shoot for the moon and hope that you get a Sule Boom? Or do you want to shoot for the moon and hope that you get maybe a Bryson Williams? Like, player archetype, which one would you go for?
That's a great question. I mean, that's an amazing question, because you look at these teams that are built, in March Madness specifically, and I always look at the mid-major squads, and I don't see a lot of bigs, right? I don't see these bigs on the star teams. I mean, think of March Madness Cinderella runs on smaller teams. you're usually going to think of guards. Steph Curry, right? He comes to mind. This year, I think Cal Baptist had Dom Davis. Like, these are smaller guards that score, and I think that's how you win at this level. You win through the guard play, and you do have to have good bigs, but I don't think you need a Bryson Williams type of big to get to the tournament. I'd rather have a Sule Boom type of guy, and that's my reasoning behind it. I think at this level, a great all conference like player of the year type of point guard that can put up 20 a game, give you 4 assists, something around that. That's what you need, and I think that's where I would go.
I would go there too, and Steve said the same. So we're 3 for 3, and maybe like now it's making me think. Okay, well let's talk about the other side. Maybe the other side was this past year, right, where they went all in on a guy like Elijah Jones, all in on a guy like Jamal West Jr. and think that hey, Jamal West Jr. could be maybe a difference-making type of player, which he was like night in night out. Like he was a guy who really helped propel them forward. But look at his resume. Like look at where he came from, and look at the type of player he was. Like he wanted to win at a higher level, and this was going to be his final year. Like to make that decision to get a player of that caliber to come for your final year, that's hard. Like who does UTEP go after? A sophomore who's maybe unproven, or a junior who's going to make this his last stop?
Yeah, and I mean when you look at this team, right? They had the bigs, Kasim, Elijah, and Jamal. That's a dream trio, right? If you had a good guard, if you had a guard that could put up 20 a game. And I know I'm reaching for a lot because to add a guard of that caliber onto this year's team, I mean, we're talking about a really, really good basketball team. But what I'm saying is this team, say what you want about Tyrese Watson. Maybe they were missing him this year. Maybe you could have been a difference maker, but you can't really create off the dribble with Kasim or Elijah or even Jamal, right? You can hand it to him in the post, but you need guys to create for them. And I think they were missing that this year. So when it comes to this next year, I just think you go after a proven guy, right? Whether he is a rising junior, senior, sophomore, whatever it is. If he can put up stats and he can be a elite level point guard or something of that nature, I think that's where you need to go.
If they went the small forward route and got like somebody who's 6'6", 6'5", and like he's a guy who could be a 3-and-D, high level 3-point shooter, what would you think about that? Knowing that I still think the priority should be guard. Like I'm kind of with you on this, and maybe it's different, right? With the Joe Golden coach squad, who's the prominent guard that you're thinking of who's maybe standing out and being an all conference point guard, like straight up point guard? They kind of have that positionless guard, bringing up the ball and stuff like that. Like I'm thinking of a Tay Hardy. That's probably the best guard period that you're talking about in the Joe Golden era. But other than that, like who are we talking about here? It's not, maybe it's Zid Powell. You throw him in the discussion. You throw Shamar Givens for all he gave you, but that was still a team that struggled in a big way. This past year with Caleb Blackwell came on a little late, but still showed a lot for this basketball squad. So I mean, other than Sule Boom, we're not talking about really anybody here at that ball handling type of position. Or would you just say a small forward? Like, hey, maybe you get something out of a different looking type of Otis Frazier III, who can come in and average some big points, but play some good defense for you.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. Right? I don't think fans would mind it either. If it's a guy who, at the end of the day, if he's only going to sit in the corner and hit threes and maybe average 15 a game, I don't know if I would want that, right? I think at this level, and I think I'm kind of repeating what I said earlier, but I want a guy who can just go out there, tween, hezzy, shoot the ball, a step back and create off his own, right? He doesn't need anybody. Just throw at the ISO. And I think you saw that with Sule, right? He could do that easily. He can come up the court, go around a couple of screens, and boom, he's going to hit in your face, right? You had the whole boom type of thing. So I think I want a guy who can create, with his own shot, with his own moves, has a deep bag. And I know I'm asking a lot here because those guys are rare to find, especially at this level. But, that's what I'm looking for. And I think that I'd be more than content if you spend, 3/4 of your NIL on a guy like that.
Well, even think about like international athletes. Like think about like guys who are coming from other places like that. Those are maybe guys that you could tap into too. I just don't think it's like, I think they've swung on some of these guys and hope that they'd be better prospects on paper that they looked at than they actually were coming in. Like no knock to some of these current players or no knock to the previous players in the past, but there's been times where I look at a prospect or I look at a player and I'm like, man, I fall in love with what he could become. Like the ceiling of this guy, it makes me super excited. But at the same time, I look at this group right here and it just didn't live up to it. And that's a tough part too, because how are you supposed to gel in a situation like this in under 10 months where you have success with certain guys and make it happen? Like, this will be the second year in a row where it's a full roster reset. And last year wasn't a lot of continuity either. They kept Elijah Jones, they kept KJ Thomas, they brought back Trey Horton, Muhammad Bai. It was somebody who they hoped could be an immediate guy who helped them out, and same with a guy like Cassius Brooks. And it didn't work out for CJ Smith, David Tubeck, or Bobby Montgomery. Like, that's a sad thing. And even Bobby Montgomery, a true freshman, doesn't get it to run it back here with this squad. It's a full reset going into next year minus Jordan Hernandez. So I would have thought at least one of those guys would have stuck around. Like, you heard us on Minor Talk at the end of the season. We were all predicting at least a couple of these guys had a chance to stick around, but everybody's in the portal. And, maybe it's not just the player side of things. Maybe it's a little bit of a reset on the coach side too. And Golding saying, okay, well, let's start fresh. Let's go different, like a different direction completely going into the Mountain West.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it perfectly, right? I feel like they have swung on some of these prospects, these transfers. I mean, not to dog on these guys like you said, but go back a couple of years, first guy that comes to mind, maybe Jamari Sibley. Comes from Georgetown, highly rated recruit. He's a long, lengthy guy. He kind of filled the need that Bryson left that year before, and you saw the flashes, right? You saw what he could be. He's a lengthy guy who, if he developed a bit of a post bag, he could be a fun guy to watch, but didn't really work out, right? Mario McKinney didn't really work out. You swing on these guys, and maybe it turns them off to these maybe higher rated recruits or just prospects in general that they don't live up to. So I'm interested to see what direction they end up going with in the portal. I mean, you see it kind of with who they contact. You can kind of see where they want to go with these types of things. So I'm just ready. Like, yeah, it's been a long period of just waiting, a long period of losing a lot of players.
Right.
I'm ready to see who they're bringing in.
Right. I mean, think about it. The last time we talked about basketball was March 7th, okay? Month later now. We haven't heard anything other than players leaving. Like, that's all we've heard up to now. And then you look at like who's coming in, right? That's something to be excited about. We can talk about that in a sec. But before we do that, like the main point about the transfer portal and the main point about maybe some of the guys who are coming in to all of this right here for UTEP basketball is to understand that UTEP is going to hit this full roster reset. But the question that I've got for you, Zay, is like, let's say you had to play a bit of salary cap, and let's say that you had to construct this roster in a certain way, and I'm going to give you a budget of just over $1 million, okay? And this is hypothetical in this situation, but in relation to UTEP, okay? So let's say it's like 1.2 million. Let's say it's 1.5 million, something like that, in that kind of range. How would you build a team if I were to tell you that these guys who are hitting the portal at the mid-major ranks, so Conference USA, Mid-American, Sun Belt, those types of conferences, include the new look Mountain West Plus, those conferences right there, those guys are hitting the portal, and those guys are going for $1 million and above. So if UTEP is going after certain guys, how would you construct the roster knowing that you're operating with a bit of a limited budget in this sense? Still, from what we're hearing, is going to be a very competitive NIL when it comes to the teams in the Mountain West right now. Not necessarily number one, but definitely closer to the top than they were maybe in the conference, you say.
I'm gonna say it. I'm a box score watcher. I'm gonna go into box scores, and we were talking about this earlier, but I'm gonna go into the SWAC, and I'm just gonna see who's lighting it up, who's out here getting buckets, who's getting rebounds. And I know that sounds corny, and that's definitely not how Division I athletic departments, or I should say teams as a whole, operate. But for me, I just think we haven't seen that. Maybe Kasim is one of the only rarities of you go out and get a guy who was tops in his conference. And even Kasim, I mean, he was third team in the MEAC. And no offense to the MEAC, I mean, that's great basketball, gritty guards. But if you're only getting a third teamer out of the MEAC, then, that's your high key transfer here. I want to see a guy who, should have been player of the year in the SWAC. And I think that you can spend money for a guy like that. And I'm talking if you got to blow $800,000 on him, that's your marquee guy. You build around him, build the guys around them, and hope you hit on some of these guys. And I think that's the route I would go, somewhere
Yeah.
somewhere along that. And like I said earlier, I want to see them, be able to create off the dribble, create their own shot, because sometimes, I mean, this offense is a little stagnant and it just doesn't work like that. So you need a guy who can hit a bucket late in the shot clock. You need a Tyler Perry, a Jelly Walker, these undersized guards like that who, I mean, you remember watching them. They're disheartening to play against. You stop him for 20 seconds on the shot clock, and then all of a sudden he's pulling it from nearly mid court, and he's just draining it in your face to take the lead. You need a guy like that.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree because all right, let's now take it a step further because I'm on the same page as you. You say you build all around this one guy. You throw 800,000 out there, and let's use the same example right there, 1.2 million. Okay, so you've spent $800,000 in this situation on one player right there, and you just have a limited budget on everybody else. And let's say all the high school guys are free. Let's say like you work out a deal, and maybe all of them equal up into a small fraction of what your NIL could be, or they get something a little bit different. But point is, they're not going to cost you a ton of money. Getting Donovan Chris, Isaiah Ward, Delano Tarpley, the JUCO 7-footer Alexander, I should say. Like, let's say those guys aren't costing much money, right? In a hypothetical world, okay? And so now we got 5 players on this roster, on this hypothetical roster, led by an $800,000 player who's going to possibly play like a point guard position, right? So now how do you build around that? That's the next part, right? Because now you're trying to shop smart and trying to get the best you can for not a lot of money. So do you go out and try to get 2 or 3 starting caliber players who can be right around 6 figures and then hope that those 2 or 3 guys fill out that starting 5 for you, and then maybe bargain shop, like you mentioned, D2, JUCO ranks, maybe you could do something like that and throw less than a 6-figure deal at these guys, but guys who are really excited to make some money and play some basketball at a Division I level. Is that a winning roster in the Mountain West?
Oh, probably not, right? The way we're talking about it doesn't sound like it, but I think the whole basis behind this is they're gonna have to get lucky, right? If you're going this route, if you're taking the advice of 19-year-old Zay Galindo, you're gonna have to get lucky. You're gonna have to hit on some of these D2 guys with that, like you said, maybe aren't gonna be able to be. You're not going to be able to break the bank on them, right? You're going to have to get lucky. You're going to have to hope that Donovan Chris is putting out the same production that maybe a David Terrell did in his freshman year, right?
6 man.
You're going to have to hope that one of these big men that they signed end up, maybe a little more polished than they expected. And it sounds far-fetched, right? It sounds far-fetched to say this, and it sounds like a butchery plan, but it's different, right? And I think that I've emphasized this the whole time we've been talking is I just want to see something different because I feel like we go down the same route when it comes to this basketball team, and there's no momentum here, right?
Well,
there's no momentum.
Well, it's interesting you say, like, hey, maybe you take a shot on some of these high school guys legit. Like, and that's maybe like the Isaiah Ward thought too, is like this guy came out of nowhere. Like, no one was recruiting him, yet he was one of the top 25 recruits in the state of Texas. Even Donovan Chris, that's the top 10 guy who won what did he win? All San Antonio, like all player of the year.
San Antonio player of the year.
Like that's a pretty big deal right there. And you get to be Brennan High School 2.0. You get Delano Tarpley, like you mentioned, a 6'10" center. Like they didn't have a guy who was playing on the floor relevant minutes for them who was over 6'10" this past year, but over 6'9". Like they had really, really small guys on this past year's roster. So maybe, like you said, Zay, like to just give them some size could make them a completely different look team, or like a totally different look team. And maybe that's a good thing, like taking a shot on some high school guys, giving them an opportunity to play. I don't know if that's a reality. Let's just look at the history, right? Even when they take a project like the 7-footer Alexander, how many of these guys who go from the JUCO ranks to UTEP who are at that big man position, Bonky Maring, you can go, the list goes on and on, Muhammad Bai. Like there have been multiple examples of these guys who've come from a junior college, they've taken a chance on and just haven't produced at that level that they need. And I don't think they really ever expected these guys to do something crazy like this, but you always take a shot at somebody like that in the hope that they could progress quickly. The problem is the timeline is much smaller. I mean, it's 10 months versus 4 years of development. It's 10 months versus 2 years of development now. Like these deals are on such short terms that it's hard to show that true year-to-year progression. And I mean, people can watch this and say, well, they should bring back Mohamed Bai. Like they should bring the obvious argument against that is this was an 11-win team. Like maybe you did truly need to hit the reset. And even if it gets tough and challenging to try to figure this out, you'd ride or die with that risk right there, knowing that you want your ceiling to be a little higher, and bringing some of these players back, it just keeps your ceiling the same way it was before.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it's sad looking at it like that, right? Because you talked about it. They've had kind of a pipeline of JUCO big men that you bring in, and they're just gone after a year. Like it's kind of weird to look at it like that, but it's the truth. And so I feel like the development of these guys, and I think I'm not even saying the bigs anymore. I'm saying of everybody on this team, it's worrisome to look at, right? Because you look at Trey Horton, he's a 3-year player. His best year was his freshman year, right? Kevin Kalu, arguably his best year, sophomore year? He really didn't grow from that. His senior year, he looked all right, right? And you can't
to be fair, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're going to have a 4-year player in this environment, on paper it sounds good, right? But in reality, if you have a 4-year player sticking at UTEP his whole career in this era, maybe that's not the greatest thing, right? Is it really that good? Because if he's really going to stay here at UTEP his whole 4 years, and people are going to hate me for this, but if he's going to stay here his whole 4 years, probably means he didn't grow that much as a player, because any big-time player at any mid-major conference is usually going to hit the portal after, maybe a year or two of really putting up some good stats. So I just hope that, those are anomalies, and maybe if this coaching staff ends up maybe 5 years down the road, they're still here, and I hope that they can develop players at a higher clip, because I didn't see it. Outside of Elijah Jones, I really haven't seen that development go to work.
Well, the other side to that, well, first off, yeah, like the side to like the development side, I think you hit it on the head. Like I think these coaches start at the all-conference numbers. And so if you're an all-conference player, you're out, right? And you look at Caleb Blackwell. Like, he's on the fringe right there, doesn't truly get that, but he's out too. And it just tells you that even the guys on the fringe, even the L.A. Hayes of the world, like, I think those types of players believe that there's a bigger role ahead of them. Even KJ Thomas, like, how do you convince a guy who played a majority of a role in the point guard position that you're not going to get that same role next year? Like, how do you convince somebody that you're going to come off the bench as a sixth man? You don't do that. So, again, I think on all sides, maybe it was good for everybody. And like maybe the reality in the offseason check in here before things become actually real, because we're just speaking on a lot of hypotheticals. Like we really don't know a lot. And maybe, in the coming weeks we come back on here on the Overlook and we talk a little bit more about like, hey, they signed this guy, and we break down film and we talk to players, and we discuss different things, about the incoming roster. Those can all happen, but now we have the magnifying glass on this year's team and where things are going and going to the Mountain West. And I think for a lot of fans, it's just a lot of anxiety and doom and gloom and worrying, and nothing to be really excited about. So maybe to your point, Zay, like maybe you get a difference-making guy, and you could breathe a sigh of relief and be like, wow, you got a Sule Boom, you got a Bryson Williams in your building, or even to the less caliber, like you got a Jordan Lathan, like a guy who like comes into UTEP with ton of prowess behind him and high upside, and you bring in a guy who like a Deion Stroud, who's a young player who could play for you right out of the gate, or you get a contribution from a player like a David Terrell Jr., who he was in his freshman year, who came off the bench and was pretty selfless. So I think like no matter what, like I think greener pastures are ahead, right? Say like it can't get worse than this. You can't. It's not. They're gonna get to 2026 with a roster somehow. Like they're gonna find a way to get to November and December with the roster somehow, even though it looks a little murky right now. And I guess that's the only selling point that I have for this the way that things are going, is that there's got to be something in the future, because I didn't even like how this past year's roster was really constructed. So I feel like there's a lot of upside from here, moving forward. I think they could build a true roster that looks a lot better than what they currently had this past year.
Yeah, I agree, right? I think that all signs point to when you hit rock bottom, the only way, to move forward is up. So I want to say that it can't get worse than this. This is wood, knock on wood, right? Because this is bad. But I think, to maybe round out this basketball, conversation as a whole is, at least for me, going into this season, I just wasn't excited. And that's the first time I haven't been excited for UTEP
I remember
basketball.
you were pretty early on how you didn't buy this team.
Yeah, and I don't feel that way. Like you guys know me. You guys know me on Minor Talk. Even with the football team, like I'm gonna be optimistic about things, but I wasn't excited. I felt like there was no momentum, and I just want to be excited again when it comes to basketball because at the end of the day, I like basketball more than football. I'll say that. I think I've said it, on maybe another podcast, even when it goes down to the high school ranks. Like, I just enjoy basketball as a whole. And so I want to be excited about this team. I want to be excited to cover this team. I want to be excited to go take photos of this team, right? I want to see some good basketball. So we'll see what happens with this. But like you said, I don't think it can get much worse than this. There's one player on the team right now. So,
yeah. Let's wind it down with some football stuff, and we'll come back in the coming weeks here and talk more UTEP offseason storylines and stuff like that. But some football stuff to round things out. EJ Colson's still the headline, and I like how he's getting a lot of the media attention. I like how he's getting the focus right now on everything that's going his way, and well-deserved. I mean, well-earned for a player like him who comes in with a lot of recruiting prowess on his side. He's done the media rounds. He's done a lot of the things on his end that, is putting the spotlight on him, which I really like. But EJ Colson's still getting a lot of the spotlight here for UTEP football.
Yeah, I mean, he's QB1, right? We had kind of this with Malachi, but there was still a competition to be played, him and Skyler, so it kind of clouded that. I think, Scotty won't say it. I don't think the team will ever say it until game one, but EJ's their guy, right? Like, you can kind of sniff it. You can smell it out that he's going to be taking the snaps day one, and I think it's good. It's good hype. I mean, football, it's king, right? At the end of the day, I think most people would disagree with basketball, you enjoy basketball more. I think more people, this is a football country as a whole. It's the most popular sport. College football is what it is. It's growing. It's growing, right? More people, at least my age, are tuning into college football. And I think that I'm excited for this team. I'm excited for EJ. You talked about it. He's great on the media. I've been watching the interviews. Like, this guy, he's a little funny, but in his own way, right? It's not like he means to be funny, but, he has a good story. He talks well, and I'm ready to see him on the football field. Like, I haven't seen this guy in action. I haven't seen him throw a pass yet.
Oh my gosh! When I see him in drills and stuff like that, and they threw out one that looked amazing on like a social media, but like there's a couple that when I got a chance to watch him throw a ton of balls at pro day, like they're 1 out of every 4 like looks so beautiful, like looks so crisp. Like I would say it's an A+ throw, like 1 out of every 4, and if he can make that, 2 out of every 4, like forget about it. Like he could throw dimes and forget about it. Like if you don't catch it, then it's on the receiver. Like that could be the kind of player he is here in the future, which makes me excited. Like his upside is there. I mean, he's a player right now who I haven't been as excited about a quarterback in a while as him. And it's just the facts. Like you have to look all the way back to like Vidito to see a true quarterback with that much prowess behind him come into a program and have this kind of like, early kind of hype. So and Malachi was the prospect, right? The glory prospect. Everybody was excited about him. Skyler was the guy who had obvious pedigree and had the starting experience in the past. Even before that, it was a starter in Gavin Hardison who had done it at the NAIA level, but never did it at the D1 level. So when he came onto the scene for the first time, it was a surprise. Kyle Loxley, even though he had a lot of recruiting hype around him, and he had a lot of the Texas side of things on him, the number 1 recruit out of JUCO at the time, like. He came in with a ton of recruiting hype, but when you saw him in practice, you just realized it was going to be a lie. It was not just because of him, the scheme around him, but also he didn't have the players around him to do what they were hoping to do. He was kind of like the Cam Newton of UTEP that year, just trying to bully his way through as a running quarterback. But before that, forget about it. You're not talking about anybody like Jameel Showers or any of those types of players. Like, those just weren't the guys who were the true quarterback recruits. So EJ doing that is a pretty solid thing. The defense worries me a little bit, but then I looked a little deeper in the linebacker room, and I'm starting to like it. Like Vashawn Brunswick, Garrett Hawkins, Jaden Wilson. I mean, this is a linebacker school, Zay. Like, that's the funny part, is that this is truly a linebacker school, and those 3 right there, you throw in Josh Rudolph, in that conversation. Don't know how healthy he'll be, but you throw him in that discussion right there. I mean, that's 4 studs of linebackers right there that you're bringing in to this season.
Yeah, and I can look at how some people might be a little worrisome about the defense, not even starting on the offense yet, right? Everybody's going to worry about that. But especially on the defensive side of the ball, because you did lose a lot of production. At the end of the day, you did bring back some key difference makers, but you also lost some guys. So what I would say to that is I think that this is, at least under Scotty Walden, they're always going to have a competent defense. Like, it's going to get the job done, right? It might not be as good as it was maybe a couple years ago, stuff of that nature, how good they were maybe to start the year last season. But I think they're always going to be competent. I don't think their defense is going to lose them many games, right, regardless of how it is. And I think that it'll just come down to whether they can figure the thing out on the offensive side of the ball.
So I like Justin Content, of course. I really like Xavier Smith in the secondary. You look at other guys on this team right here who could be difference makers in that secondary room. I'm a fan of Donovan Howard. I'm a fan of Chase Biddle. Those are guys who are going to play immediately for them, for the Sears squad. And then you're going to have to look at other guys in that secondary right there who could also stand out. But LaTristan Thompson's a guy that they like at that spur position. That's always a really productive position. Dylan Brown Turner, don't forget about him. Like, he's another guy. Alan Gant, you've talked about him this offseason too. I really liked what he did at Lubbock Coronado High School and all the film that he brought to this team. So the secondary doesn't bother me. The defensive line obviously is going to be, it's always every year. It's always going to be a position group that we look at and say that could be a strong point of the team. Shaq Bowser back. I mean, that's one of the solid things. I didn't mention TJ Tillman. That was the name I was looking for. TJ Tillman, and then Echo Taylor. Those are other guys like that you look at in that defense who could stand out for them. So any of those guys kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Echo Taylor, this is year 3. I think he's one of the only, going into year 3, you're expecting a lot of him. Justin Content, you said it earlier, good corner out of, the Atlanta area. TJ Tillman and Cody Lowe, I think he's right here.
Yep.
He's another guy. So I think
name.
You reeled off those names, and it makes me feel comfortable, right? I'm not going to say this is like a dominant team, a dominant defense is going to shut down the opposing offenses. But like I said, you name those guys, and I feel comfortable going into the year. And then you're going to have the Corey Chapmans and the these guys who come on and maybe didn't expect them as a newcomer to make as much of a difference. But I think there's probably a guy that we didn't even mention that is going to come in, start day one, and be really good at football, right? Stuff like that. Micah Davey. I think going into the year last year, I kind of expected, okay, he'll probably be a starter, but for him to perform the way he did, I don't think anybody expected that. So
we all think the guys with the small numbers for UTEP are going to be the standouts, but we'll have a full preview on the spring game next week because it gets officially kicks off next Saturday, so that'll be a lot of fun to preview as well. But Zay, any final thoughts on football as we kind of keep an eye on them and look to them as their spring ball season winds down?
Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for football since UTEP's lost to Loyola Marymount on the basketball side of things. I've been ready. I don't even think the year for football isn't even done yet, at that time. But I was ready to turn the page on that year of football, this year of basketball. I'm ready for 2026. I'm ready for the Mountain West. That's what I'm excited about.
I'm ready for the Mountain West as well as the countdown begins. And special shout out Chris Collins here, the Inspo Lens Studios for the first time out there. We're working out all the kinks, but it didn't seem like there were many kinks. We made it all happen out here. It's awesome. We got the jerseys in the back, commemorative posters, and some cool swag. So shout out to Chris for setting things up here at the Overlook. So appreciate that and the Inspo Lens Studios. But for Zay Galindo, I'm Adrian Broaddus. We're signing off. Thanks again for watching us here on the program, and we'll be back in action next week.